I'm Madeleine Swan. I started this book while I was here. It doesn't have a title yet, so... Her face gave Mr. Penislewski the unnerving impression of an empty cup. It was the oddest will reading he'd ever given. Usually his clients at least pretended to look upset, sometimes while grinning. Penislewski looked down at the page. Your father didn't have a fortune, but what there was belongs to you. The girl, Miss Dornibori, nodded, not uninterested, but not exactly in a hurry for him to continue. Her curly black hair was pulled in a simple ponytail, and her dark eyes barely blinked. Her salmon cardigan and grey trousers were unremarkable. For a moment, Penislewski was irrationally afraid that she was an automaton. He'd read stories about them, clockwork machines made for the purpose of a single action, almost human, but so far. In fact, right at this moment, it made total sense. When was the last time he'd seen her breathe? Why were her movements so mechanical? He should probably run from the room. No one would blame him, surely. He pictured Miss Hollings's face splashed with confusion. She was very sensible, a good trait for a solicitor, not so much for a person to explain irrational fears to. He stayed in his seat. He says your aunt and uncle are in charge of your finances and will call you soon to finalise everything. He paused, expecting even a tiny reaction, but nothing, no nervousness, no excitement, just that same blank face. Okay. Are you close with your aunt and uncle? Penislewski couldn't imagine her being close to anyone, then felt bad. He was sorry for her. Everyone deserved to be close to someone, even if they pretended they didn't need it. No. Okay, do you want me to get in touch with them for you? No. You have their number then? No. Penislewski bit back a sigh of frustration. Right, here's their number. They've asked for you to call if you need to. I think that's it for now. Don't hesitate to get in touch if you have any questions. Lydia had known who it was before she'd answered the phone. She liked to think she was a bit psychic, but Roger reminded her that of course Dawn was going to call. Roger made everything boring. Dawn's wooden voice crackling on the line had made Lydia's skin prickle. There was so little of Yemi in it. Her brother had had such a joyful voice, even when discussing something relatively dull. Granted, they'd lost touch at the end. She forced herself to think of something else. She was excited to see her niece after all this time, had even made biscuits. They were weirdly salty, but the thought was there. However, now that the girl was staring blankly at her from the powder blue sofa in her front room, the feeling she'd had on the phone had only grown more intense. Of course, Roger remembered something very important he had to see to at work on a Saturday. Cup of tea? No thanks. So, how's the factory? Yeah, fine. Lydia's smile tightened. Roger and I have pretty much sorted everything out. We're setting up a monthly allowance for you. Yemi left us your details, so you needn't have come all this way. Not that I wish you hadn't, she blurted, face burning. It's just... No, there was no coming back from that. It's okay, I don't mind. Lydia searched her thoughts for topics of conversation, but needn't have worried. Can I use your toilet? Of course, up the stairs, straight on. This was good. While Dawn was in the bathroom, she could conjure a task she'd forgotten, maybe fake a phone call, then spend the day on Carnaby Street. The noise that brought her to her feet wasn't exactly a scream, nothing quite so urgent, but it was a definite sound of distress. Heart thumping to the rhythm of her feet, she charged upstairs. Dawn was on the landing, body rigid, eyes horribly wide. What? What is it? I've been here before. Lydia blinked. Yes, I'm your auntie. You don't understand, Dawn's eyes met hers. I've not had this feeling before. What do you mean? Lydia snapped. Like, I can see something that happened before, an image of a thing that's already happened. She frowned, searching for the words. Like a premonition, but backwards. It's a memory. Lydia remembered now why she rarely invited her brother and his daughter over. This had been getting too difficult to explain. It was just easier not to deal with it at all. Guilty termites chewed her belly. She hadn't wanted this. She told Yemi it was a bad idea at the time. No one could blame her. A memory? You know what those are. How else do you know to set your alarm in the morning and get to work? It's not the same. I can't explain. It just isn't. Lydia watched the girl fight to understand, to complete a sentence, but she didn't have the tools. Guilt turned to sadness. This was as much her fault as Yemi's. Whether she was the one who had enforced it or not, she hadn't stopped it. Come with me. She led Dawn downstairs to the room of shame, a place they called the broom cupboard, which was stuffed with odds and ends. Out of habit, she went to apologise for the mess, but Dawn was transfixed by a tatty old box with an Art Nouveau lady on the lid. Bovril, exclaimed the pretty letters above her, liquid life. Please don't tell Roger. Lydia removed the lid, revealing a single tiny green stone. She handed it to Dawn, who turned it over and over. If not for the colour, it could have come from the garden. What is it? A piece of you. What, like a memory? Lydia remembered the endless conversations with Yemi where she tried to understand the process herself. Kind of. Memory, personality, all the things from a particular moment in time. Swallow it. Dawn continued to stare at it, her fingers shaking. Will I remember everything if I do? No, Lydia lowered her eyes. Just one piece. Where's the rest? I don't know. I don't, she insisted before Dawn could protest. Finally, with a deep breath, Dawn threw it to the back of her throat. Okay.